Beautiful people, welcome back to Organizing an ADHD Brain, where the perfect place to start is right where you are. I'm your host, Megs Crawford. I'm a professional organizer, an ADHD coach, and a fellow work in progress. Because let's be honest, we're all work in progress. This season 3, we're talking about the messy middle. Not about the before, not about the after, but all of the stuff that comes in between. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff that comes in between that perfect before and after picture. So let's jump right in. Hey, before we dive into this incredible interview we have today, I am interviewing Laura Hope. She helps people work on their negative habits, these habits that we've developed because it's a coping mechanism for us to deal with the uncomfortable. And we continue to talk about the uncomfortable as we're talking about the messy middle. She also speaks to regulation. Guys, regulation is it. It is everything. It's so amazing. And it's also never ending. Once you start, you can't stop. But actually, it's pretty interesting because a lot of you deal with your ADHD by learning how to regulate, but you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. I emailed Dana K. White the other day because I was so excited because I finally realized that the question she asks in the beginning of her methods, right? Where would you go to look for this if you were trying to find it? That's actually a question that is very regulating because we are so often in our fight or flight brains going from this place to that place. We are operating from a place of reactivity. We are not consciously thinking about where we're putting things or why we're doing things or what we're doing in general. That question brings us back to reality to think about how we're setting up our house for future us. So instead of just saying, I'm going to put this away, or this goes here, or I think this would be fine right here, or let me put this behind here and I'll find it later. We're asking ourselves the question, where would I go to look for this if I were trying to find it? And you can even close your eyes and say, oh, future Megan would go right here and then put it there. Or talk to your spouse or children and say, where would you go to look for it if you were trying to find it? They tell you, then you put it there. And then you can agree and you start to make decisions as a family. So this regulation thing, I am on it, right? It's everything when it comes to organization. I've been talking about it for a while already, but this will continuously come up as we're talking about the uncomfortable, because when we are in a place where we are not in our normal habits anymore, when we're not in our place of comfort, we get dysregulated very easily. We get uncomfortable. And when we are uncomfortable, we look for anything that is going to make us feel better. And sometimes that's avoiding. Sometimes that's drinking. Sometimes that's doing things that just make us feel good in the moment, even though it's not going to help us long term. So today I'm really excited to continue this conversation because Laura has some beautiful insights. And she also has some really great resources for those who either struggle with some of these self-deprecating habits, but also some really incredible ways to regulate yourself through these different moments. So check out the show notes below. Today's episode is brought to you by my incredible community, the We're Organizing an ADHD Brain community. Without them and their support, I would not be able to do all the things that I do by bringing this podcast to you. I also want to shout out my incredible coaching clients that allow me to come to you every single week. And also Abigail, you have been a dream come true. I am now able to record podcasts and she comes in and edits them for me. And then I enjoy this again. Asking for help is an incredible thing, and I'm going to continue to talk about that too. We shouldn't be doing all of this alone. Yay! I am so excited to introduce you to Laura Hope. She is a BFRB and habit coach who helps people break free from unwanted behaviors so they can take back control of their life. And when you reached out to me, Laura, I was like, yes, we need to have this conversation, especially when it comes to the messy middle. You talk about regulation. I've taken a look at your website and you have so many incredible services that you offer. But first, tell us what BFRB stands for. What is that?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So BFRB stands for Body Focused Repetitive Behaviors. This is an umbrella term that includes hair pulling, skin picking, nail biting, cheek biting, hair twirling, all of those kinds of, as it says, body-focused behaviors that we keep coming back to over and over again. And it's something that truly there are a lot of people out there that struggle with these behaviors and they don't even know that they have a name. I'm so glad that we're doing it this week because this is actually BFRB Awareness Week. going on
Oh,
right now,
no
October
way.
1st to 7th. I know. So it's really important to get the word out because there's so many people who are struggling who, even for me, I thought for years that I was pulling my hair out and that nobody else did this crazy thing, right? That I was so alone in it. So BFRB stands for body focused repetitive behaviors.
Wow. And so what got you into doing this work? Because you used to be a clinician, right?
So I still am a clinician, actually. Yeah, I'm a
Cool.
PA in psychiatry. Yep, as well as a BFRB and habit coach. So I wear a few different hats. What got me into this work was, well, I struggled with my own hair pulling for years and years. It started when I was about 12 years old. And when I graduated from PA school in my early 30s, I decided that I was going to go into psychiatry to try to help other people. And I tried to learn everything I could about this and tried to learn the strategies for therapists and clinicians to treat patients and clients with body-focused repetitive behaviors. And once I went through all these trainings and read all these books and got the certification, I was still struggling with my own hair pulling. And I thought, well, if the people who know how to treat this, like that isn't working for them, we have to be missing something, right? This can't be it, that the people who know all the strategies are like still doing the same thing, right? So that put me on this journey to figure out what was I missing. I realized that at the bottom of all of these behaviors, not just body-focused repetitive behaviors, but any behavior that we come back to over and over and over, procrastination, stress eating, impulse spending, all of those things that we say, why can't I stop doing this? It's about dysregulation. Those behaviors are trying to regulate us because we are dysregulated. And if we don't choose how to regulate ourselves, our brains step in and basically do it for us. Once I realized this and also realized that these behaviors aren't trying to ruin our lives, they're trying to help us, they serve a purpose, then I felt like I needed to share it with everybody else. Because the tools that are taught in all of those programs are helpful to deal with the urges, but what nobody is teaching you is how to reduce the urges, how to get to the bottom of them and minimize the urges, how to proactively regulate yourself so that you don't need those behaviors anymore. So that's how I got here, was essentially my own journey. And once all these pieces clicked together, I was like, how do I help other people? How do I spread this message?
Amazing. I'm so excited that we're talking about regulation. I just finished an 8-week course myself because I wanted to dive in more. Everything when it comes to organization comes down to regulation as well. We avoid our clutter, and that's one of our regulating techniques, right? We don't have to deal with it now, right? Because there's no deadline.
Right.
But also, when it comes to parenting our kids, it has to do with their regulation. Like any of these behaviors has to do so much with regulation. So I am so excited that you're teaching about it because it is absolutely incredible. Will you share with us a little bit about once you discovered that regulation was a key to finding the other side, if you will, how did you decide to regulate yourself? What did that look like for you?
It's truly still a work in progress. One of the things that has been most helpful for me is meditation. I know there are a lot of people out there with ADHD who say, I can't meditate, I can't get my brain to stop, I can't clear my mind. And to them, I say, that's not the point, actually. If you're going into it with this idea of how do I feel calm and relaxed, or how do I clear my mind, or how do I get the racing thoughts to go away, you're going to be disappointed time and time again. I've been meditating daily for over a year now, and more times than not, my brain is all over the place. But what I've learned is to watch those thoughts rather than be caught up in those thoughts. So that's one of the biggest strategies for me. But a lot of it is trial and error. A lot of it is practicing boundaries, which, oh my gosh, is so hard for me. And it is still a work in progress. And I feel like I have come so far, and there's still more to do. But setting those boundaries to say, no, I need to rest right now. And that's whether the boundary is setting it with myself or setting it with others. Sometimes it's me saying, I need to give myself this break right now. I can't keep pushing. I don't actually have the capacity to keep on doing whatever it is I'm trying to do. And sometimes it's setting boundaries with other people, such as my kids. For example, no, I can't drive you for the 5th time out to, this area, right? We've done it 4 times. That's all I've got right now. Or can we do this tomorrow? I get that this is important to you. It's important to me too. can we do it tomorrow because today I'm out of spoons? Those are a couple of the things, the meditation, the boundaries, even just practicing pockets of mindfulness during the day. I will probably 10 to 20 times a day take a big deep breath and blow it out and relax my shoulders and relax my jaw. And that takes like 10 seconds, but it is such a helpful reset for me. I only got to that place by practicing over and over. And every time it popped into my mind thinking about it or setting myself reminders on my phone or Post-its. And now it's to the point where I just kind of do it automatically. Every time I start to feel that overwhelm, I take in a big deep breath, relax my shoulders, relax my jaw. So those are some of the things that I've been doing, but it truly is a lot of just trial and error, trying something out, figuring out if it's helpful for me, and then sticking with it if it is, or modifying it or letting it go if it's not.
What I think is fascinating about regulation too is when you start to build the habit, you start to notice more. I just yesterday was having a really hard day and I was like, why isn't my brain braining? Nothing is working for me right now. And so I took a moment and I'm like, oh, I didn't get a good sleep last night. So it's the mid-afternoon. I always get tired around this time. Of course, I'm not going to be up to my own standards. Let me go take a nap. And I did. And I was able to survive the rest of the day. It's so interesting when we're able to bring ourselves back to this conscious brain and be like, what is really happening right now?
Yeah.
And how could I treat myself and support myself through this, like discomfort, this unsettled feeling?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you bring that up because you just mentioned two things that I think are actually key to regulation, and that is curiosity and self-compassion. How do we get curious about the situation rather than trying to criticize ourselves or push ourselves into this space that we don't really fit? And how do we have self-compassion for our very human limitations? And so I think those are two other things that really support me in terms of regulation is having curiosity about the situation and self-compassion.
That's awesome. Oh my God, I had like 8 questions come up in my head just now because I'm so excited about this. Okay, I want to talk to you about when you start to work with someone, it's great to make the choice to say, I would like this to not be a part of my life, skin picking or hair pulling. Actually, before we dive into that, what does all of these repetitive behaviors have to do with ADHD?
Such a great question. I'm so glad you asked. So ADHD is essentially a condition of dysregulation, right? I think ADHD is so poorly named. It's not a deficit of attention whatsoever. It's difficulty regulating attention. It's having a lot of attention where you might not be served by having that much attention there and not having enough attention in other areas. And so these behaviors, as I mentioned, help regulate. They're actually really handy regulation tools. I was just at a BFRB conference where they use the term Swiss Army knife. And I was like, that's perfect. Because I've been saying a one-size-fits-all tool, and Swiss Army knife sounds way better. So I'm going to borrow that. They're like a Swiss Army knife. And the reason that they are so handy at everything is that when we are overstimulated, such as we're feeling anxious or we're feeling overwhelmed, these behaviors help bring us into the middle. When we are understimulated, when we are bored, or when we're trying to sit still while we watch a movie or while we listen to a lecture, these behaviors help bring us up into that middle area. So they're so incredibly handy with ADHD because ADHD is a condition of dysregulation, and these behaviors help to regulate. They go hand in hand. A lot of people think that they are anxiety-based. And while it's true for some people that they're anxiety-based, I find for the vast majority of people, they go along with neurodivergence. And that makes sense because neurodivergence has to do with dysregulation, right? And these behaviors regulate. So I tend to think of them more as these complementary things. They might be frustrating. I'm not saying that they're not frustrating at all, but it really does complement the ADHD brain.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And the way you described it was spot on. That's so beautiful. Yeah.
Great.
Amazing words. Okay, so when you start working with someone, they've made the choice that I want to stop. I want this habit to go away, right? But then you make a decision to start. And what happens then? What do you see this process look like? And obviously, we're talking about the messy middle, right? And so it's not easy.
No.
Tell us what to expect when we're diving into figuring out how to regulate ourselves in a healthy way.
So step one is when somebody comes to me and says, I want to stop picking or I want to stop pulling, because that's exactly what they say. One of the first things that I do on my very first coaching session is say, how do we turn this into a positive goal? Rather than I want to stop pulling or I want to stop picking, how do we shift that to I want to be intentional with my hands, or I want to learn how to regulate myself in a different way? When we think about our goals as a stop behavior, we are actually putting our attention on the thing that we don't want anymore, which keeps us stuck there. You might have heard of the example of, what if I tell you not to think of a pink elephant, what do? You think of a pink elephant, right? Yeah. Exactly. So when we come at it with this idea of I have to stop this, we are essentially telling ourselves, don't think of the pink elephant. And then when we think of the pink elephant, we're yelling at ourselves and saying, I told you not to think of this pink elephant. And that's exactly what you're doing. And we get in this cycle of frustration. And remember, I just said that BFRBs are regulation tools. So when we criticize ourselves, we actually increase the dysregulation and we give the behaviors more work to do. And so one of the first things that I coach clients through is, I want to know what you want to be doing instead. How do you want to be regulating yourself? And that's what we're going to focus on, not how do I stop? We're going to set aside this idea of how do I stop? The other thing that I bring in addition to the pink elephant example is I'll say, okay, now if I tell you I don't want you to think of a pink elephant and instead I want you to think of a blue dog, how big is this dog? What does it feel like to pet this dog? What is the dog's personality? See how much easier it is to not think of that thing that you're trying to stop when you shift your attention and you get really curious about the thing that you want. So that's one of the first things that I do is shift the attention away from how do I stop this behavior to how do I do the thing I want to do and what do I want that to look like?
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. Once people start and they are thinking about this new life that they could live, the blue dog versus the pink elephant, the pink elephant still exists, right?
Yep.
It's already there and it's been there for much of your life.
Yes.
So how do you say, get out of here, pink elephant. The blue dog is now my pet of choice. What does that process look like? And can you share, a story or an example with us?
Let's take a quick break.
If you're enjoying this episode, I have a quick favor to ask. Could you take just a minute to leave a review? I know. Every podcast asks, but here's the deal. Your review helps other ADHD brains like ours find this show. Plus, reading them seriously makes my day. So if something in this episode has helped you, made you laugh, or even made you feel seen, let me know by leaving a quick review. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you more than you know. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah. So just to give you kind of an overview of the process, we get curious about the behavior and then we look at what needs aren't being met and how do we meet those needs? And then how do we build you a toolbox of tools for when you are dysregulated? Because let's be real, it's unrealistic to expect that we will never be dysregulated. We have ADHD and we can do everything possible to meet our needs and regulate. And at the end of the day, we still need that toolbox to get us through the dysregulating times. And then also bringing in self-compassion. You asked about a story, right? And so to talk a bit about self-compassion and how important that is, I often tell clients that this behavior is trying to help you. It is serving a purpose. It is doing something for you. We don't repeat any behavior that doesn't serve us in some way. So if we are coming back to a behavior over and over, it's really important to figure out how is it serving us. One client that I was working with, she was like, I just disagree. That's not, my behavior doesn't serve me. It's only caused problems for me. I said, okay. I meet people where they're at, right? If that's where you're at, that's where you're at. And the next session she came back and she said, oh my gosh, you're right. I realized that this behavior flared up when I was in this really stressful position and when I was trying to get through school and after this big, scary event. And she said, yeah, that's when it shows up the most during those scary times or those really stressful times. And so I think that's a really important thing to recognize about these behaviors is that they're doing something for us. And when we can lean in and appreciate even, a lot of people struggle with that appreciation towards the behavior, but when we can lean in and appreciate it, it tends to go so much more smoothly. I'm at a place where I thank my hair pulling. When I have urges, I thank the hair pulling for letting me know that I've become off balance because the hair pulling will tell me that I've gotten out of balance before I know that I've gotten out of balance. And so it took me years to get there. But now I'm able to say, rather than, oh my gosh, this hair pulling needs to stop, I'm able to say, oh, thank you, hair pulling. You helped me realize that I have gotten dysregulated. I've become dysregulated. And how do I now regulate myself? I also had an eye twitch the other day. And I woke up and I thought, oh my gosh, this eye twitch, how annoying. And then I thought, nope, that's not how I do this. I approached it with, okay, thank you, eye twitch, for helping me understand that I have become dysregulated, and asked myself, what do I need right now to help become regulated? And then the goal of this was not to make the eye twitch go away. The goal of it was to use the message that the eye twitch gave me that I was dysregulated and help regulate myself. And every time the eye twitch was still there, sending out this message of, okay, thank you for telling me that I'm still not regulated yet. Thank you for telling me that I still need to do this work, rather than how do I do all the things to get the eye twitch to go away? Because if we approach it with how do I do all the things to get the eye twitch to go away, we're increasing tension again. When we approach it with, okay, thank you for giving me this message, and I'm going to listen to this message, and I'm going to do the things that I need to do right now, we're decreasing the tension and we're working with our brain.
That's fascinating. I love it so much because I pick my nails, I pick my thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do, like right here. And something I now correlate it with is ruminating thoughts. When I'm ruminating and I'm doing the mental litigation in my head, I start to pick my thumbs. And when I first noticed that correlation and I would become aware of it in the moment, I would be so annoyed to stop. I would be like, well, I don't want to stop. Like, it was so weird to me because I'm like, no, this is a habit I don't want to have anymore. Yeah. I don't want to just stop because this is helping me in the moment to feel better. So weird. It's such a strange experience to say like, oh my gosh, no, this is helping me. Mm-hmm. But it is truly uncomfortable to say, oh no, I'm going to do something else instead. Mm-hmm. But I love what you said too, because it helps me think about the way that I'm doing it myself. Instead of just stopping, saying, what is this telling me? And seeking out, why am I here to this point? Like, did I get enough sleep last night? Going curious, giving myself grace, and more of observing, not saying like, I can't be dysregulated, I must be regulated. That is not what this work is all about.
No.
More of, why am I dysregulated? Let me get more of an understanding, and let me go to one of the tools in my toolbox to help me become more regulated in this moment so I could support myself.
And that in the example that you gave, these ruminating thoughts, right? Well, those ruminating thoughts, they're upsetting to us. They might serve a purpose. I often say that there's a difference between processing emotions and spinning your wheels in emotions, right? And when we get into rumination, we have exited processing thoughts and we have entered spinning our wheels in those thoughts. And so that behavior comes in to say, hey, this doesn't feel good when you're spinning your wheels in these thoughts. Because I imagine when you're processing thoughts, well, that's not comfortable either. In a different way, there's a bit more of a curiosity and a bit more of a, what am I going to do with this situation? Or how am I going to feel these feelings, right? Rather than the rumination, which is just sitting in the muck and not going anywhere. That behavior comes in to say, hey, this doesn't feel good. Can we do something else?
Yeah. And instead of noticing, most of the time we just power through doing the thing until it becomes such a problem that we really do need to seek help. I remember my biggest struggle is with my kids, and my daughter was pulling out her hair, I think in first grade. And I started to notice because I like felt her hair and it almost felt like she had a buzz cut like right here. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating to me because I didn't even notice. It was something she was doing at school and I didn't see her doing it at home. And when I don't know how to regulate myself, I don't know how to help her either. And so one of the most fascinating things that I've learned through parenting is to regulate myself first. One of my favorite parenting gurus is Mindful as a Mother. So I'll shout them out because they talk about, in order to help your kids, you've got to learn how to regulate yourself first. And that was fascinating to me because this stuff comes full circle. And I think we beat ourselves up so much as parents to not be everything for them first. But that's another reason why we have to show up for ourselves first. If we don't know how to do it for ourselves, how could we possibly teach them how to do it?
Right. We can't give tools to our kids that we don't have ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us, so you meditate, and that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. There's other ways to regulate it. What are some of the tools that you give people in the moment to work through some of their habits?
Yes. So do have a giant list like this. It's called Try This Instead, Regulation Strategies to Overcome Unwanted Habits.
Cool.
And it's like this list of 100 different things separated out into categories like, are you feeling, worked up, or are you feeling bored? So just to give you some of the things on that list. Breathing exercises, I think that can be really helpful. And that's something that I really encourage people to try out some different strategies. Some might fit for some people and others for other people. And so it's really important not to try one breathing exercise and decide whether all breathing exercises are for you or not. So different breathing exercises, grounding exercises where you are tapping into your 5 senses. What do I see? What do I hear? There are some really structured ones like 5 things that you can see and so on. And, 4 things that you can hear and so on and so forth. And I usually tell people that for many people, trying to get all of that right feels like too much. And so I say, just pick one sense and narrow in on that sense and notice everything that you can feel or notice everything that is around you. If you're in a really familiar environment, try to find something that you have never noticed before about this. That can be super helpful for me. Going outside, just changing your environment can be helpful. We were not meant to be inside all day long. Our brains just don't do that very well. So go outside, get some space, get some fresh air, step on the ground in your bare feet, text a friend, watch a funny video. I love like the fainting goats and baby goats. And so when I need something, watching like baby goats trip over themselves, I think is really cute. Or there are a couple of videos that I have that I think are just hilarious that when I'm having a hard time, I'll go watch those videos. So those are some of the ideas, but movement, breathing, mindfulness, get curious, change your environment, do something creative, go do something restful, such as like taking a hot shower or a hot bath or something like that. Those are some of the strategies that people can start to practice and build up their toolbox with.
That's awesome. And I love that there's a range of things that you can do. You might not be able to go take a hot bath every day for an hour, but you can breathe. You are able to breathe. Even if it's for 30 seconds, you can pause and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And I did read something recently, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you take a deep breath, it's proven to take you out of the back of your brain and back into your prefrontal cortex where you make logical decisions and you're prepared to make the next right decision.
Yeah, I don't know about that one in particular, but I would totally believe it. The things that I know for like brain hacks that I recommend often are when your exhale is longer than your inhale, that sends messages to your brain that it's okay and you can calm down. During our exhale, our heart rate actually slows down and it's so small that we don't notice it when we're just breathing normally. But if we can give ourselves more of that time when our heart rate is slower and less of the time when our heart rate is faster, right? We can use that to kind of hack into our own system and lower our heart rate. Yeah. And then the other brain hack that I often suggest is if you can just get curious. Our brains can't do input and output at the same time. Output thinking, input, I'm curious, I'm noticing. It can't do both. And so if you need a break from the thinking brain, switch into curious or noticing brain because it can't do both. And that will give you a break from the thinking brain. Now, you might notice that it jumps right back into thinking brain, but that's okay. When you notice that, just pull it back into curious or noticing brain.
Interesting. Yeah, I really like that. Regulation has been such a journey for me. I remember when I first started this podcasting journey, I interviewed someone on regulation. And I was like, oh yeah, yoga. I do yoga. I'm regulated, right? So I had decided done, check.
Right.
But this truly is a journey. And I love that you share that as well, because it's a journey in noticing what works for you and figuring out what works for you. It's not about you just saying, do this and everything will be okay. It's no, notice. It's about understanding where you're going to fail a little bit and where it fits just a little bit better. But as we go through this journey, where have you noticed people to start going from feeling really uncomfortable making these changes to feeling more comfortable? How long does that typically last?
So actually, I'm going to kind of turn that question on its head a bit. You said, how long does it take people to get comfortable instead of uncomfortable? And what I actually help people do is be okay with being uncomfortable. That can take different amounts of time for different people. Honestly, it's a journey that I'm still on. And so I don't know that there is an end game to it. I don't know that there is an end date where you can say, okay, now I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. But truly, that is where the magic is at, not in figuring out how do I get rid of this discomfort, but saying, how can I not fear discomfort? How can I know that discomfort is absolutely necessary to growth? And so if I choose to avoid all types of discomfort, I'm never going to grow. We don't grow inside our circle of comfort. We have to get outside of our circle of comfort, and everything outside of our circle of comfort is uncomfortable by definition. And so that's where I try to help people is let's be okay with being uncomfortable rather than running from it all the time. People can start that journey in as little as a day, but it really is a lifetime of practicing. I often say with the circle of comfort, your circle of comfort is constantly either expanding or shrinking. It does not stay the same. We can do things inside our circle of comfort or we can do things outside of our circle of comfort. We can't do it right on the line. And because we're always in or out, and if we're always in, our circle is going to shrink. If we're always outside of our circle of comfort, it's going to expand. It's constantly expanding. And so we have to choose, where do I want to be on this circle? Do I want to be on the side of growth that is uncomfortable in the short term, but helps me in the long term? Or do I want to be on the side of short-term comfort that is going to cause me long-term problems?
That's so huge. And I love that you said that because I noticed before I started tackling so many of the things that I was doing to uncomfortably regulate, I was trying to avoid discomfort in any way, shape, or form. And like that was through drinking, through skin picking, through anything that made me feel better because I wanted to avoid feeling yucky. The reality is that's a part of life. There's some things that come up that are just not feely goody. And what if it was okay to feel those things and to deal with them in a way that made sense? I watched a video years ago and it was like, oh my gosh, this is mind-boggling to me. This woman was talking about going out and binge drinking with her friends all weekend, but she knew that her friends were raised really well because before they went out, her friends were like, okay, let's make sure that we eat a really good meal and let's go for a walk before we, and I was like, yes. What? People do this? This is a thing. And like, it's amazing. Fascinating to see the habits that people have in like, taking care of their body. But what's fascinating about that even more so, and what's amazing is that they're paving the way to show others that it's possible. It's possible to regulate in a healthy way. It's possible to find ways to take care of your body. And it's also okay to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's the biggest message right there is it is okay to feel uncomfortable. We don't have to run from the discomfort. The most liberating thing that I have found for myself is being able to sit with the discomfort and not fear the discomfort. Because when we get there, nothing feels scary anymore. It can feel intense, but it doesn't feel scary. I had a stressful situation not too long ago with my son that I didn't show up in the way that I wanted to for him. And I was just heartbroken that I had let him down. And, here I am crying in my closet. And I remember in that time thinking, I'm feeling really intense emotions right now, but I know that this isn't going to last. I know that this is a moment in time. And so I'm just going to let myself feel it. It's not scary. It's intense. And I was able to move through it. That not fearing the discomfort is just so huge.
I love that story. First of all, I also cry in my closet. We could start a club or something.
Yes, absolutely.
I noticed recently that to help my kids feel better, there it is, right? I'm trying to make them feel better. I see them going through this cycle. I'm like, I want to come in and fix everything. And as they get older, I can't do that all the time. But my daughter wrote me a letter the other day and she said, I really like it when you hold me when I'm sad, you make me feel better. But it wasn't what I said. It wasn't what I was trying. I wasn't trying to make her laugh or anything like that. It was just sitting there and holding her. And because I feel very uncomfortable not trying to make things be better, but because I just sit there and allow them to be sad, but just hold them and love them through the sadness, it has been the most powerful thing I could have ever done as a mom. And it's been such a gift to be able to have these conversations and to notice these things and to observe it in my own behaviors, even just helping them out.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. That is so powerful to send your kids the message. It is okay to be sad. And I'm just going to be with you while you're sad. because we don't need people to fix the sadness. We need people to support us in the sadness. And you're absolutely right when you said you weren't trying to make her laugh or do things like that. When we do that, we're telling our kids or whoever it is, whether it's a friend or anybody, we're telling them it's not okay that you're sad. I'm so uncomfortable with you being sad that I'm going to try to change it so that I don't have to be uncomfortable with watching you be uncomfortable. When we try to quote unquote fix that for other people, we do it entirely for ourselves, because we don't like the discomfort we feel in their presence with the sadness or the anger or whatever it is, right? It really is not for them. It is for us. And as soon as we can own that, we take back our power, right? Because our power is not in changing their emotions. Our power is in saying, can I stay here with you and support you? Or do I not have the bandwidth for this and I need to separate myself for a bit until these emotions pass for you? There was a situation with my husband who also has ADHD. And so he was trying to fix a toilet and he had been to the home improvement store. I am not joking you, 4 times in half a day. I'm not even lying. And he was getting so frustrated. And I remember there was this sense in me that I wanted to say, it's okay. You don't have to fix the toilet today. Or it's okay. Just let it go, right? Just take a break from it. And then I noticed that was my discomfort with him being angry. He wasn't angry at me, right? And he wasn't doing anything at me. And so I left it at, if you need anything, let me know. I'm here to support you. And that's it. And then I let it go. Right? And so that gives him the ability to work through his emotions. It lets me off the hook for tasking myself with the job of fixing his anger, which I can't do anyways. And it was so helpful to be like, I've put my support out there. Ball is in your court. If you need me, if I can't deal with this anger, then I need to go outside or go to a different room or whatever. Right? I know that I kind of got off on a tangent, but I think it's really important to let other people sit with their uncomfortable emotions and notice when that feeling comes up that we want to change it for them. That is entirely about our own discomfort with it. We don't have to fix it.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I have noticed this with family. I've noticed it with friends. It's not for us to fix. The only person that we can control is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so hard to control. It's hard enough to do our own stuff. We can't possibly control anyone else around us. But for so long, it's so easy to get angry at someone else. When you're getting angry at something, notice what that says about you. Why is it bringing that anger up in you?
Mm-hmm.
And how is that a reflection of you, something you like or don't like, and start to examine that. And that was really powerful for me because now I start to look at things a little bit differently. And I say, okay, is that anger still justified? Can I feel that and be totally uncomfortable being angry? But also, is that anger not justified? And do I want to react a little bit differently? And that's a powerful gift that regulation can give you.
Yes, regulating anger. That's so huge because when anger pops in, it is just so intense, right? And what usually, and this comes back to curiosity, right? Can we get curious about it? Like you just said, what else is there? Oftentimes underneath the anger, there's a more vulnerable emotion. There's a fear of losing control, or there's a feeling of I'm not supported, or there's a feeling of I can't get my needs met, or scarcity, lack, right? Whatever it is. And so when we can look at it, like you said, about, okay, what else is in this? Why don't I like this? And we can find that more vulnerable emotion, because we turn to anger because it feels stronger than loneliness. It feels stronger than fear. And so when we can find that vulnerable emotion and sit with that vulnerable emotion and have compassion for ourselves that we are in this vulnerable space, the anger really does start to dissipate. It doesn't feel as intense. It doesn't feel like it's going to take over.
That's beautiful. I just want to reiterate what you said earlier, because when you decide to make a change, you've made the decision. The decision is the easiest part. And you're trying to get to this other point, right? You're trying to figure it out. Once I stop skin picking, then everything will be better, right? But through this time, it is very uncomfortable because you're changing the status quo of your life. But it's about finding the comfort in the discomfort. Like, how do you just get comfortable being uncomfortable? My husband and I just moved to Massachusetts from Colorado. We are in the uncomfortable. Every time I notice how uncomfortable I am, I'm like, I am growing and it is okay to feel this yucky about it. And that is powerful, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment. It doesn't, switch the thing. It allows that feeling to be okay.
It is truly about the journey, isn't it? It's not about the end result of how do I get comfortable in this new home? Because as soon as you get comfortable in that new home, there's going to be something else uncomfortable that lands on your plate, right? And so I think it can be helpful to look at, how do I appreciate this journey? How do I let go of the goal is the only thing that matters and really be present on this journey with all that it has to offer me, comfortable or uncomfortable?
Yeah. Sometimes I like to zoom out too and think about, once I'm there, right? This vision that we've created.
Yeah.
Will I miss this part of it? Right? What will I miss about this? And can I come back to that and be grateful for it in this moment?
Yes.
And that's how I think about parenting my kids and, am trying to set boundaries when it comes to work. And I love that you talked about boundaries because that is huge.
Yes.
And it feels so uncomfortable to set boundaries, even if it's the best thing for us. We're so nervous that because we want to make other people feel better about it. It's truly an uncomfortable journey. It's just really uncomfortable. And it's so freaking worth it. It's so worth it.
Yes. And I think that is the bottom line. Like, it is uncomfortable and it is worth it. Just as you said, that is the messy middle right there. It is uncomfortable and it is worth it.
I think that's the name of this episode. It's never been more clear to me than it has.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I love so much about what you do. I would love to put a link to all of those different tools in the show notes. And then you also have this really incredible list that you're creating for people who struggle with hair pulling. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So it's the BFRB Salon and Spa Directory, and it's essentially this list for beauty and other healthcare service providers. I have a lot of salons on it right now and fewer spas, but the vision is to have salons and spas to cover the whole gamut of BFRBs. So I'm building this list so that people with BFRBs can have a place to search to find somebody trusted. Because I know for me with hair pulling, I avoided salons for years. I would go 6, 8, 12 months sometimes without a haircut because I was too uncomfortable being in front of somebody who was really like up in my hair and seeing my bald spots and seeing all of that. And then also because I wasn't with people who were skilled with this, I didn't leave with great haircuts. And so it wasn't like it was a good experience at all. I really want to help people with hair pulling or skin picking find salons that they can go to that they know they're going to be treated with respect and not someone who is like, well, why don't you just stop pulling your hair and then you won't have these bald spots? For spas, for skincare services, for people who struggle with skin picking, for them to be able to go and not have somebody say, well, if you would stop picking, you wouldn't have all these scars. So the idea is to have this resource for people to go search for salons and spas that they know they can be treated with respect. They know there are going to be people there who get it.
I love it so much. And I'm so excited because for someone out there who has had this issue, just to know that that is something they could seek out, someone who could support them through that, that's got to be, I know with clutter specifically, it can be so embarrassing for people to even say, this is what we're working with. Everybody comes to me and they're like, I'm the worst you've ever seen, right? Like they've decided.
Yes.
I'm like, I've literally seen everything. There's no possible way and there's no judgment whatsoever. But we hide in the shame. We hide in this, like nobody else has this. And what an awful thing for me, right? But when we come out of hiding, we realize there's so many people that struggle with this as well, which is why I do what I do, which is why you do what you do, so that people know that there's resources out there for them and you don't have to stay in hiding. There's people who want to support you through finding an answer on the other side.
And I also think it's so powerful to know how many people are out there helping with this, whether it's somebody helping with clutter or whether it's somebody creating this list for BFRBs. When we realize that there's somebody out there helping other people with this, we can't be alone, right? If there are all these resources out there to help with this particular problem that we have, there's no way that we're alone because nobody would have created this if there weren't so many other people out there struggling with it. And so I think that's a really powerful part of this type of list or directory, or even, having these services for people to know, wow, well, if someone else is already helping out with this, there must have been plenty of people that came before me that were struggling with
Yeah.
this.
Oh my gosh, 1,000,000%. I'm so glad to be talking with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Any last minute thoughts or anything else you wanted to share before I let you go?
Yeah. One other thing that I did want to bring up is looking at the stages of change. We have different stages of change, from pre-contemplation, I'm not even realizing it's an issue, contemplation, maybe this is something I want to change, planning phase, okay, how do I change? And then executing at that action phase, right? So we go through all of these stages. And one thing I want to point out about that messy middle is that so often those first few stages where there is no external change that we can see, we really struggle to give ourselves credit for that, moving through those stages of change where it's invisible. You can't see it on the outside, but truly it's more work on the inside to go through those stages of change, to go from pre-contemplation, I don't even realize this is a problem, to contemplation, maybe I should change something. And then planning, going from maybe I should change something to, okay, how do I change it? And so I want to call out, as part of that messy middle, that we really have to give ourselves credit for that invisible work, because it's so easy to discount it because we don't see the results on the outside yet. But it truly is hard work to do that internal work.
Yeah, that's fascinating because, and I love that you've given me the words to use too, because I have clients that have come with me and they're like, I don't know if this is going to work. And I'm like, I get it. And we're going to believe in it. We're going to do it anyway. And then at the other side, they're like, I wish I believed in it faster, right? But like, no, that's part of the process.
Yes.
And sometimes we really need to think through things. We really need to let it sit on our brain for a little bit before we truly see all of the outward things actually happening. So I appreciate that so much. Thanks for sharing that. Cool. Oh my gosh. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you for joining me here today. And
thank you for having me.
Hope to talk to you again soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Wasn't that amazing? I loved at the end. Okay, that was so huge when Laura was talking about the changes and how we're going through changes. And the beginning part of the change is where we're having to really grasp on to what we're doing so that we can affect real change. But no one else can see it. And it's so annoying because we just want to talk about all of this change that we're making, but no one can see it. And it's very frustrating, but that is some of the most important work that we do, the stuff that nobody can see. Because not only are we changing the way that we've operated our whole lives, but we're trying to grasp that this is actually possible, which means that we have to change our belief system. Our belief system, like going from people with ADHD can't be organized to saying people with ADHD can be organized. I just have to understand how I approach things and approach them a little bit differently, understanding my brain a little bit better. So it's fascinating stuff. I love that she brought that up. I also found an article about when you take a deep breath, bringing yourself back to the prefrontal cortex. Not a scientist, but I read a lot about this stuff. And so it's fascinating. I'm going to put an article down in the show notes below. Continue to work on regulation, guys. Like, this is so huge. I have been thinking about this, doing work on it forever. I talked about how I took a course. The course that I took was through Jenna Free with ADHD, and she is on Instagram, and she has a website, all this stuff. She's incredible. I love her course. It's something that I've incorporated into my own coaching because it is one of the key aspects to us getting things done and actually taking action and not avoiding the tasks any longer. But also, Laura is incredible. Everything she had to say was spot on. Delicious, good, juicy stuff. Continue to find out more about this because this is one of the keys to us not suffering from the ADHD symptoms anymore and truly understanding a way to thrive through life by addressing when we are so dysregulated. Trying to think if I have anything more to say. I do have one more coaching spot available in the month of October, but honestly, we'd probably not start until November because there is a little bit of preliminary work. If you're ready to start talking about coaching, just get on a call with me. There's literally no pressure, and it really just helps you understand what the process looks like and what could be involved. And then you get an idea of if this is within your budget or not. Regardless, I'd love to chat with you. Go to organizingADHDbrain.com/coaching to find out a little bit more. It is my dream and my goal to do a group coaching program. I have been talking about it. I did it a little bit last year. I really want to do it. But every time I feel like I'm ready, I realize how much I realize how much help I still need with my business basics first before I'm able to put myself out there to develop or to finish developing this coaching program. It is in the works. If you are interested, go to organizinganadhdbrain.com/coaching. And I'm going to have a little sign up sheet there specifically for group coaching. While I'm not going to have this available right away, even if you heard in a couple podcast episodes before that I did, just bear with me. Please sign up because I'd love to chat with you about what would be important for you in group coaching. I really want to understand how I can make the best course possible in a really incredible, beta, beautiful program. So get on this list so that we can chat. Even if it's not available right away, it will be, and it's going to be so good. It's going to be so good regardless. I can't wait. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to make a full decision. This one's a good one. You are not going to want to miss it because making a full decision is everything when it comes to making progress in our home with ADHD. And it's just another regulation tool that we can have in our back pocket when we're making decisions in our home. Have an incredible week, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much for listening to Organizing an ADHD Brain. Just remember, I am not a doctor or a mental health professional. Everything I share here comes from my own lived experiences or my professional experience coaching other ADHD humans. If you need medical or mental health advice, please reach out to a licensed medical professional. What you hear on this podcast is for support and education, and how you use the information is completely up to you. For more resources, free downloads, and different ways to work with me, whether through coaching or the community, please go to organizinganadhdbrain.com. And don't forget, the perfect place to start is right where you are.